Hello, BookTube. For this Tag Thursday, I'm going to be doing the Horror BookTube Tag. This tag was created by Alex of Bookubus. I was kindly tagged by Alan of Big Hard Books and Classics, and I'm reading the prompts off of MJ of Reading This Life's version. So I'll leave links to all three channels in the show notes down below, as well as any other booktubers that I happen to mention. Um, so let's get going. Question number 1. How and when did you get into horror? I've never been into horror. Horror is a genre that I've never been particularly interested in, particularly in novels. I'm a bit fonder of horror, as much as I can be, in film, more so than in fiction. Question number 2. What was the first horror book you read? I do not remember the title. I do not remember the author. I don't even exactly remember the cover. But what I do remember is that the story is about a young girl, so I'm thinking it would be like early middle grade or young adult fiction, by which I mean it was sort of, I don't know exactly when middle grade and young adult as genres or as whatever the hell they are were first sort of invented. I think this book came out before then. But it's about a young girl or young woman whose family moves into a converted church. So it's a church that has been renovated and remodeled into a home. However, this church has a cemetery attached to it, and the resulting house has that cemetery still attached to it. So the main character ends up encountering and I think befriending the ghost of a little girl or young woman. And I think there's an initial friendship that eventually turns toxic. If I remember, I think the ghost of the little girl tries to lure the living protagonist into a nearby lake to drown. I think with the intent that they would basically spend the rest of eternity playing together or something. But I mean, it has been like 30 years at least since I read it, because it wasn't, I don't think it was a book that I ever actually owned. I think it was either my sister's book or one of my step siblings or step nephews, or however that works, or nieces or nephews. I don't remember. It's been a very long time. Uh, Question number 3. What horror-related goodness can we expect from your channel? Not much. Prompt number 4, or no, still question number 4. Do you have any favorite themes or subgenres within horror? I am quite fond of like occult detectives or folkloric horror, or that kind of demi-monde horror, if that makes any sense. I'm not a huge fan of like the torture horror, or the ones that largely focus on the dismemberment and stuff like that. No. Prompt number 5. Name an underrated horror novel or author. I really don't know. I'm not into horror. I don't really follow a lot of horror centered channels, so I don't know who they would think would be underappreciated, either author or novel. Number 6 is the opposite. It's name an overrated author or book. For this, I'm going to go with Stephen King. I definitely think Stephen King is overrated. I also think H.P. Lovecraft is overrated. Prompt number 7. Recommend 3 of your favorite horror novels. I tried to do a version of this video yesterday. I wanted to try to pre-film something because obviously I'm doing an early video today because my mom has an appointment later today, so I won't be able to film anything during my normal filming period. So when I did that attempt to pre-film this video, I basically was like, okay, give me a second to think of the recommendations, and I couldn't. I don't really have any recommendations, particularly for novels. Again, I am more horror film works a bit better on me than horror fiction does. Although if you are interested in recommendations, definitely check out the other booktubers who have done this tag. Prompt number 8. Recommend a book for someone who is new to the horror genre. Again, I really don't know what to recommend. Prompt number 9. Are there any book to film adaptations that you particularly loved or hated? So I really like the film adaptation of The Devil Rides Out, which is based on the novel The Devil Rides Out by Dennis Wheatley. Although, if you ever happen to catch it on TCM, it will be under The Devil's Bride. I don't quite know why the film name was changed, because, yeah. Anyway. So it's about a group of friends who, in the novel, are a quartet of adventurers, the modern musketeers. In the novel, in the film adaptation, the relationships are still there, but a bit different. In the film and movie, a young man named Simon Aaron has come under the influence of an occultist named Makata. His friends, primarily the Duc de Richelieu, and I'm blanking on the other guy's name, sort of intervene to save him, because de Richelieu is a bit of an expert on the occult. And what then proceeds is a battle of magical wills between the Duke and Makata. The film is much better than the book. The book has some extraneous bits that really, particularly the second half of the book, that really could just be cut. Although the movie itself, as much as I have enjoyed it, there are some points where you're like, why exactly does Simon get involved in this stuff in the first place? Because he doesn't seem to be all that enjoying it, or like, it makes no sense, but it's a horror movie. Although I guess it doesn't quite work as well as it's a soap opera. I also really like the Christine adaptation. I do think Stephen King tends to be a bit better in adaptation than in actual prose, but I liked Christine, although I think that might also be because I had a crush on the actor who plays Arnie. So Christine is about a young man who is, initially he's a bit of a nerd, who hangs out with a popular football player. One day he finds a wrecked car and buys it and starts to fix it. Unfortunately, the car is somehow possessed by the evil spirit of its former owner, or the car itself is just somehow or other become a demonic entity, but it sort of falls in love with Arnie and gradually transforms Arnie into a greaser. Okay, see here. Next prompt is number 10. How do you discover new or new to you horror books? I would say check out Thomas of SFF 180. He primarily focuses on science fiction and fantasy, but he has a decided sweet tooth for horror. When he gets new horror in with his mailbags, however, when they appear, he will kind of haul them. And in October, he does a horror-themed video series as much as he can. So I'll definitely leave a link to Thomas's channel in the show notes down below as well. Number 11. What was the last horror book that you bought? Probably Uncharted Seas by Dennis Wheatley. It's the basis for the movie Lost Continent. It's about a shipwreck of ne'er-do-wells in the Sargasso Sea that basically is a lost island. They basically, over the centuries, the shipwrecks have produced its own sort of hidden civilization. I had to go at it 2 years ago, and it was not terribly good. I bailed on it fairly quickly. Prompt number 12. What horror book is at the top of your wish list? I don't have one. And finally, prompt 13. Tag some others. So if you would like to do this tag, consider yourselves tagged. I will be back tomorrow with weekly reads, which will be an early weekly reads, because while the manga I read this weekend it was awesome, it was great. The books I read over the course of the work week have generally sucked. So it'll be an early weekly reads, and then I will do, excuse me, a try chapter tag, because there's a project I want to do in August, and I want to sort of try to do a try chapter tag to sort of pick one of the books I'll be reading for that project. Assuming, of course, I actually want to read any of the 4 or 5 books that I initially picked to do the thing. But anyway, I will talk a lot more about that tomorrow with both weekly reads and also the try chapter tag video itself. So anyway, BookTube, that's all I have for today. I'm going to go ahead and get this uploaded and start my morning walking about. So until then, until I see you next time, BookTube, thank you. Have a great rest of your day and stay safe.